Oh God, while we come in this great conference to celebrate, to see how we move forward and to hear the different plans, we're mindful of our brothers and sisters in the West, the business sector and financial sector, the hotel sector in the West, God. And we pray for recovery in the name of Jesus. So bless today everything we'll do this evening as we surrender and leave ourselves before you. Bless this conference, we pray, in the name of the Father. We pray in the name of the Son, and we pray in the name of the blessed Holy Spirit. Amen and amen.
Thank you, Reverend Johnson, and please, ladies and gentlemen, be seated. You know, it's really good to see all of you here tonight. Whether it's your first time or you've been part of this conference for the past 19 years, we welcome you and we're just so happy you're here. You know, 19 years, it tells us two things. We must be doing something right. And you clearly like the company that we keep. So thank you for being back here again, those of you who are visiting for the first time, and those of you who have been with us over the last 19 years. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you. And if you would just turn to the person next to you and say the same thing. So we're going to spread the love around as we start. Let's get to it. Okay. Good to see you. Yeah. You might want to say you haven't aged a bit. Speaking of good company, you know, just to affirm that statement, in just a while we'll be joined by our Honorable Prime Minister, and there are some other persons who will be with us, but for right now, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of His Worship, Mayor Andrew Swaby, and of course, Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation is the outfit that he represents. Mr. Stephen Whittingham, Chairman of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Mr. Livingston Morrison, CEO, Jamaica Stock Exchange. Other members of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, JCSD, JCSD Trustee Services, and JSSE boards. Mr. Gregory Fisher. Gregory, hi. Gregory is Managing Director and Head of Emerging Markets, Fixed Income, and Wealth Management, Jefferies. Heads of the stock exchanges. We also would like to say hello again to Reverend Dexter Johnson, who led us in prayer just now. My media colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and everyone joining us virtually from across the region and around the world. Finally, I'm Michael Anthony Cuff. For those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, good evening. I was really expecting a more rousing response than that. So let's try that one more time. Good evening. That sounds more like it. Okay. Again, I'd like to thank you for being here with us tonight. This conference has always felt like, to me at least, more than an event. It's more like a homecoming, you know what I mean? It's where conversations continue, ideas are tested, and of course, views are expanded. I mean, mine, you know, my views certainly are every year after I leave. And for 19 years, the Jamaica Stock Exchange has created this space where capital meets confidence and vision turns into growth. This year's theme says it clearly: capital markets fueling economic resurgence and resilience. And somehow it just feels right that we begin with leadership. I mean, after all, let's face it, capital markets don't move forward by chance. And so therefore, they move because someone leads with purpose. Now, our first speaker leads with he leads an institution not only with purpose, but an institution that continues to strengthen confidence, support economic recovery, and position Jamaica as a market respected globally. He joins us now to officially welcome us and open our conference. Please join me in welcoming Group Chief Executive Officer, Jamaica Stock Exchange, Mr. Livingston Morrison.
It's always a challenge when you take the podium after such a tall, handsome fella. Allow me to observe the protocols established by Michael. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're looking fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Pleasure to welcome you here. Welcome to Conference 2026. On behalf of the board, management, and staff of the JSSE Group, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this, the 21st Conference, Regional Investment and Capital Markets Conference. This conference is now a staple on the annual calendar, thanks to our main sponsors, NCB Capital Markets Limited, and of course, Jefferies. Angus, Greg, thank you so very much for your unwavering support. I also extend special thanks and appreciation to our other very important sponsors, who will, of course, be recognized throughout the event. We could not do this without you. Welcome to the public and private sector representatives, members of the financial services sector, members of the diaspora and academic communities. Welcome one and all to Conference 2026. Please allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to reserve a special welcome for a giant among us. I like to think that we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and we are graced with the presence of Dr. Street Forrest today. Welcome, Dr. Street Forrest. Always a pleasure to share space with you. One of the reasons we host this conference during the third week of January each year is to provide a platform for discussion of global, regional, and local issues affecting Jamaica and other countries across the region. Through presentations, discussions, we hope to foster strategic alignment between individuals, organizations, and governments as we explore options for pursuing emerging challenges and opportunities. We remain focused on attaining the main objectives of this conference, which are to create an awareness of the importance of the capital markets to economic development and prosperity throughout the region, to bring together key participants of the financial services industry to discuss and present ideas on issues pertinent to the development of regional economies, to facilitate the development of strategies necessary for the future growth of the sector in the region, to assist in the creation of partnerships and improved understandings that are necessary for unlocking investment opportunities, and of course, to provide a showcase for industry trends, products, and services. This regional forum, ladies and gentlemen, for more than 2 decades, shaped conversations on innovation, resilience, and the future of the Caribbean finance. This year's theme, capital markets fueling economic resurgence and resilience, not be more apt. We gather at a moment when resilient financial systems is not just a theoretical construct, not distant, but immediate and deeply personal, especially for the Jamaican people. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the midst of a defining moment in Jamaica's economic journey. Hurricane Melissa reminded us with painful clarity that our future prosperity will hinge not only on economic growth, but also on resilience. Resilience of the Jamaican people, institutions, the financial system, and of course, resilience of the Jamaican economy. When Melissa swept across Jamaica in late October 2025, the impact extended beyond physical damage. It shook the very core of our economy. Tourism halted, airports closed, businesses were disrupted, and markets reflected the devastating impact. The JSSE combined index fell by over 7,500 points, or 2.3%, in the week immediately following. And the indices were also similarly affected. But even as Hurricane Melissa tested our economy, it also revealed our strength. Jamaica's recovery will be built on resilience, strategic investment, and the unshakable resolve of our people. I see in this moment not only the cost of the storm, but also the clarity that it brought. The need for continued resilience and investment strategies that prepare Jamaica for future shocks and opportunities. As we gather at this time when resilience is the new global currency, we must consider how the Jamaica Stock Exchange can continue to strengthen its role as one of the nation's most trusted pillars of stability. The JSSE has never been merely a platform for buying and selling securities. It has long been the heartbeat of the financial infrastructure, mobilizing capital, fostering entrepreneurship, and providing a transparent and orderly marketplace for investment. The Jamaica Stock Exchange plays a central role in Jamaica's financial system by facilitating the flow of capital from investors to businesses across the country and the region. Across the region, leaders are echoing the same concern. Caribbean nations remain among the most climate vulnerable economies in the world. Regional capital markets hold the power to transform vulnerability into innovation, uncertainty into strategy, and risk into opportunity. The JSSE has expanded the tools available for issuers and investors alike through diversification of our product and service offerings, digital acceleration, SME empowerment, contributing to initiatives to deepen the financial system to serve the needs of more and more Jamaicans. We are committed to building on this foundation. Now is the time to strengthen investor confidence. In plain terms, investor confidence depends on economic stability, on the question of whether or not businesses are positioned for growth and profitability on a sustainable basis. In this post-Melissa era, fostering investor confidence is not about recovery, not just about recovery, it's about preparation for future hurricanes. If investors see Jamaica investing in climate resilient infrastructure, using financial tools to manage disaster risk and strengthening institutions in which they invest, they are more likely to believe that this country can withstand future shocks making the country a safe vehicle for long-term investment. The burning question, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, is this. How can we leverage, how can the Jamaica Stock Exchange leverage our role to support national initiatives to strengthen resilience? I use this opportunity to draw attention to IFRS S1 and IFRS S2, which were issued by the International Sustainability Standards Board in June 2023. We fully appreciate that the responsibility rests with the Institute of Chartered Accountants to determine the timelines for setting and adopting international standards of accounting and auditing in Jamaica. It is in this context that the Jamaica Stock Exchange is prepared to adopt a proactive stance in working with the ICAJ to prepare listed companies for navigating the demands and accessing the opportunities that IFRS S1 and S2 affords. Together, these standards establish a global baseline for sustainability-related financial disclosures. They are designed to be applied together to provide primary users of financial statements with a clear view of how sustainability and climate factors affect a company's financial prospects. Expect us over the next several weeks to be engaging with our stakeholder community to ensure that our listed companies and other stakeholders are fully prepared for future adoption of these standards. As we position ourselves to inspire investor confidence, please be on notice. We will be building awareness about these standards, the implementation challenges, the opportunities for building investor confidence in the future viability and sustainability of listed companies. As I close, let us recognize that Jamaica stands at a crossroads. We can either allow global changes to catch us unprepared, or we can embrace the future with confidence, with clarity, and with conviction. The JSSE is committed to building resilience, not only in our systems, but in our leadership. We will continue to innovate. We will continue to engage stakeholders on initiatives to democratize access to capital. We will continue to strengthen market transparency. We are committed to inspiring investor confidence. Most importantly, we will continue to work with stakeholders to give priority attention to reforms and standards that will secure Jamaica's place among the world's dynamic and future-ready markets. Ladies and gentlemen, let us seize this moment together to start this conversation around strengthening the financial ecosystem to not only withstand shocks, but shape the future. Let us work together to build back Jamaica stronger. Again, welcome to the 21st Regional Conference on Investment and Capital Markets. Thank you in advance for making this a phenomenally successful conference.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Mr. Morris. Now, I would just like to join you very quickly in adding my own special hi and welcome to Dr. Street Forest. I absolutely love this lady. She's such an inspiration. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay. And since she has such an ageless appearance and all of that, I don't know what got into me, but I said 19 years of celebration. It's actually 21, so hey, you know. We're celebrating 21 years of this conference, and it's such a milestone and a pivotal moment for us. Now, I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome another amazing lady who just graced us in her own silent way. Please help me say hello to our Minister of Finance, Favor Williams. Welcome, Minister. Nice to have you with us. See, you always show up in the right places. I'm also expecting another guest, and as soon as he arrives, I will definitely make the announcement. But until that time, let's just move right ahead. You know, ladies and gentlemen, growth today demands innovation. And technology has become one of the most powerful drivers of regional market expansion. Our next speaker understands that balance. Strong fundamentals paired with forward thinking is what really drives a healthy money market. And before I say hello to him, that special guest I mentioned has arrived. Please help me welcome please help me welcome our Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness. Welcome, PM. Good to see you, sir. As always, good to see you. Happy New Year to you too, sir. Lovely to have you with us. Okay. I tell you, the things I do for this country. I mean, please, thank you. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so as I was saying, our next speaker understands that balance, strong fundamentals paired with forward thinking is one of the most powerful skill set that you can possess. And speaking on leveraging fintech for regional market expansion, I'd like you once again to join me in welcoming Chairman, Jamaica Stock Exchange, Mr. Stephen Whittingham.
Good evening, everyone. Protocol has already been established, but I have to recognize the Prime Minister, Dr. Most Honorable Andrew Holness, and I see Honorable Favor Williams, Minister of Finance, who came into the room while I was also not here, so just greetings to you all. On behalf of the Board of Directors, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the Jamaica Stock Exchange's 21st Regional Investments and Capital Markets Conference. And there are so many people in the room from outside of Jamaica, which is such an amazing thing to see so many people traveling here for this event. I think it is important to also welcome you to the home of a stock market that has twice topped the ranking of the global stock exchanges in the last decade. No, you can't live in the past glory, and I would say that the last few years of elevated interest rates, which were put in place in our market to curb inflation, have tested our performance, but our platform remains the most active in the region, and our foundation remains remarkably unshakable. We are honored to have so many of you join us for this annual gathering. I heard Livingston say earlier, but the timing of it is really important because by design, we meet at the start of the year to set the tone for the Caribbean financial markets. Our goal to engage executives, to impact board agendas, and to influence government policy. Over the next few days, we will listen to experts and conceptualize our own paths forward. And if we succeed, we will leave here with clarity on the plans that we feel as executives we must go and execute. And over the past few months, I've been personally spending a lot of time reflecting on the concepts of preparation and planning. You see, Jamaica had a plan. We successfully implementing a debt reduction program within the fiscal responsibility framework to bring our debt to GDP down to 60%. And then recognizing that natural disasters are a real risk to fiscal stability, the government had a plan implementing a sovereign disaster risk insurance solution, or a CAT bond. The Jamaica Stock Exchange, we had a plan. We were hoping to benefit from interest rates that we were almost certain were going to be starting to lower over the months coming and early in the new year. And all of your companies had robust business continuity plans, well thought through, tested, and all board approved. Now, there's a profound quote that I always remember. It's profound, but perhaps from a slightly unexpected source. It's from Mike Tyson. And I don't remember if he said it before his fight in 1987 or after his fight in 1987, championship heavyweight fight with Terrell Biggs. He said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." Well, in October, Jamaica, we had our Mike Tyson moment. We were punched in the mouth when Hurricane Melissa made landfall near, of all places, a place called New Hope in Westmoreland. A Category 5 hurricane, 185-mile-an-hour winds, standing as the third strongest Atlantic storm of all time. Now, as it approached, there are these moments in time where you hear something and you'll never forget what you heard, and you'll never forget where you were when you heard it. And I remember hearing, I don't know whether it was on it, where it was on the radio somewhere, the Prime Minister saying, there is no infrastructure in the region that can manage and withstand a Category 5 storm. And that kind of sobering message made all of us recognize the severity of what was coming to us. And it turns out we were right to fear what was coming. The damage to Western Jamaica, its physical plants, unimaginable. It was undeniably a punch in the mouth, but unlike a Mike Tyson punch, it was not a knockout blow. In the aftermath, we witnessed the conscience of our nation. We saw a private sector with members that took responsibility for the challenges facing our country, despite facing glaring losses at their companies. The response it was collective, it was not individual. We saw the same congruent coordination between public and private sectors that we once used to navigate national debt crises, multiple national debt crises, and to come together to build our $150 billion junior stock exchange. This synergy between the government and the private sector and the capital markets is Jamaica's secret sauce. Last year, I had a visit from a CEO of an international stock exchange, and in wrapping up my discussion with him before he left, I said, "So tell me, what do you think of Jamaica? What's special?" And he says he will never ever forget how effectively our government and our private sectors work together, and how unusual that can be. It is something that we do here as a part of how we operate, but it is not the norm, and we must recognize that this is something that we all in this room must work together to collaborate, to keep that vision going. Now that the immediacy of the catastrophe, the immediacy has waned, it's time for the private sector to coordinate with the financial and investment communities to raise and deploy the capital necessary to complement the government expenditure that will come. Beyond building back better with concrete roofs or catastrophe insurance, I contend that the private sector must lead a renaissance. We must build a sustainable Jamaican economy using the agency of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. For the next decade, the government will be preoccupied with the gargantuan task of infrastructure restoration, all while maintaining its prudent debt to GDP targets. And so there will be practical limits on state resources to stimulate these new capital developments. And uncertain international trade conditions will only serve to tighten this phenomenon. Therefore, the projects that we need to grow our GDP will depend on private capital flows, whether local or foreign direct investment. Jamaica cannot afford to return to the near monoculture economies of the past. Domestic expansion is essential. This renaissance, the rebirth of institutions into more efficient forms, must be calibrated through the prism of the stock exchange. This allows us to offer strong returns to investors while giving our citizens the widest possible opportunity to become shareholders in their country's growth. This magic formula, the formula is the formula for national security, social inclusion, and economic prosperity, which will be born out of this crisis. My message, everyone, for 2026 to the capital actors, the capital market actors in this room, some of you have jolted by disaster, but all fueled by a fresh vision, is that you have the power to build the bright future we envision. You have the power to build the bright future we all envision. Be bold. Thank you for being here. I look forward to our discussions and a productive conference. Good evening.
Oh, yes, indeed. Thank you very, very much, Stephen Whittingham. You know, I tell you this. When it comes to innovation and forward thinking, the next speaker embodies all of that and then some on behalf of the organization that he represents. Because, you know, inevitability matters, confidence matters, and safeguarding both is essential to regional growth. Our next speaker leads one of the region's most influential financial institutions and brings deep insight into protecting and strengthening our capital markets. He'll be speaking on safeguarding the region's investability, and I'd like you to join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officer, NCB Capital Markets, someone you all know very well, Mr. Angus Young.
Good evening, everyone. All protocols observed, but of course, with special mention to Dr. the Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Minister Fayval Williams, Minister of Finance and Public Service, and of course, the Honorable Orvin Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My purpose this evening is to provide a practical overview of two significant issues that influence the investability of our region, specifically the English-speaking Caribbean. These two issues are current geopolitical developments and evolving regulatory environments. So let's start with current-day geopolitics. In the latter half of 2025, the United States initiated a significant military buildup in the Caribbean Sea under the stated purpose of combating drug trafficking. The situation escalated as the US began a series of deadly strikes in September 2025 against vessels alleged to be smuggling narcotics. President Trump characterized these actions as an armed conflict with drug cartels. By November 2025, the force was bolstered by the arrival of the U.S. Gerald Ford aircraft carrier strike group, creating the largest U.S. military concentration in the region for decades. The scenario intensified in December when the U.S. imposed naval quarantine on oil tankers servicing Venezuela and conducted the first land-based strike on a Venezuelan port facility allegedly used by narcotics traffickers. The climax of the operation occurred on January 3rd, 2026, 17 days ago, when U.S. forces bombed and invaded Venezuela and captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. In the days that followed, President Trump issued stark warnings to Cuba and Colombia. When you look at it, the invasion of Venezuela has several striking similarities with the Bay of Pigs assault in Cuba, 1961, and the U.S. invasion of Grenada, 1983. With respect to the Bay of Pigs, the CIA-led operation aimed to overthrow Fidel Castro's government. The justification was rooted in Cold War politics, with the U.S. viewing Castro's socialist regime and its ties to the Soviet Union as a significant threat to American interests in the Western Hemisphere. With respect to the invasion of Grenada, the primary public justification was the need to protect American medical students on the island following a coup. We could also reflect on the 1989 invasion of Panama, where one of the main stated objectives was to bring Panamanian leader Manuel Noriega to justice on drug trafficking charges. We can also reflect on Nicaragua. Cuba, Grenada, Panama, Nicaragua all share one outcome: regime change was the ultimate goal. But fast forward to today, and while regime change may still form part of the geopolitical agenda, the dominant underlying driver appears to be energy security. Following Venezuela, attention has now shifted to Greenland. The strategic value of Greenland lies in its geographic position, which is critical for Arctic control, and its vast, largely untapped reservoir of natural resources. The Arctic is increasingly emerging as a new frontier for geopolitical competition and strategic dominance. Of course, Greenland is believed to hold one of the world's largest deposits of rare earth, and of course, to possess significant reserves of oil, natural gas, uranium, zinc, and gold assets. Okay. So before I transition the conversation to our region, please keep in mind that the rapid growth of artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency mining has introduced an unprecedented level of new demand on the US power grid. Let us now focus on the region. I tie my synopsis of the current day geopolitical scenario to our agenda because in my mind, for many years, whether it was true or not, there has been a prevailing perception that the Caribbean region was relatively stable and safe when compared to the rest of the world. This stability and peace contributed to its attractiveness where capital investment was concerned. The biggest risk was climate change and weather related. Tonight, I want to share some perspectives that may change this view. Guyana provides a clear example. ExxonMobil is unequivocally the largest oil producer in Guyana. The Guyana opportunity is well documented and has been discussed at previous JSSE conferences over the last couple of years. As of September 2025, Guyana's Natural Resource Fund holds a balance of $3.6 billion US. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Guyana story, let me give a brief synopsis. Guyana's oil reserves are large on a global scale. Most of it sits 100 to 120 miles offshore. You can't even see Guyana. To get the oil out of the ground, up through the ocean, onto a ship, there are things called FPSOs, floating production storage offloading vessels, that are very, very large. There are 7 FPSOs destined to service Guyana. 4 are currently in service, 3 are being built. In less than 3 years, with only 4 of the 7 FPSOs, Guyana's sovereign wealth fund has amassed $3.6 billion US. Trinidad and Tobago, moving to Trinidad and Tobago now, do you know that in August 2025, ExxonMobil secured a major deal with Trinidad and Tobago to explore for oil and gas in a vast ultra-deepwater block off the country's east coast? This marks the energy giant's significant return to Trinidad after a 2-decade absence. It is worth asking, who is 6 miles away from Trinidad? Enter Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world. As of 2025, estimates place Venezuela's proven oil reserves at approximately 303 billion barrels, which accounts for roughly 17 to 18% of the global total. This positions Venezuela ahead of major oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Canada. Venezuela, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, 3 countries blessed with significant amounts of oil and gas, all are in very close proximity to each other. Where the invasion of Venezuela is concerned, the divergence from the broader CARICOM perspective stems from Trinidad's geopolitical reality. For most CARICOM nations, the invasion is a concerning regional event. For Trinidad and Tobago, it is an immediate and critical national security crisis unfolding just a few miles from its coast. Trinidad and Tobago's natural gas production reached its peak in 2010. Today, at the Point Lisas industrial estate, a number of gas-fed plants have been forced to lie idle or shut down over the years due to a decline in natural gas production and supply. In July 2023, it was reported that 4 plants at Point Lisas had been shut down. That's 4 out of about 7 plants. Trinidad has to access Venezuela's vast Dragon Field in order to resuscitate the nation's gas-dependent industries, including its liquefied natural gas and petrochemical sectors. The influx of gas is crucial for the country's energy security and economic stability. I share these insights to provide greater context on global geopolitics and its implications for our region. Because if we are to retain capital and attract foreign direct investment, we must pay close attention to the global political agenda unfolding in our own backyard. In doing so, those of us in this room have a responsibility to identify opportunities while actively mitigating risks from our investors, our businesses, and the region as a whole. So let us now zero in on our domestic space. Most English-speaking Caribbean nations have no motherland to rely on. Most of the islands don't have the abundance of natural resources like Venezuela, so significant deliberate and fiscal heavy alignment with some superpower is unlikely. As indigenous people of this region, we must therefore be intentional in safeguarding the region's investability. This encompasses many factors like food security, energy security, but tonight we focus on capital markets. Over the next 2 days, we offer and invite deep discussion on the free flow of capital in the Caribbean, the free movement of talent in the Caribbean, regulatory harmonization in the Caribbean, and the broker-dealer's responsibility to regional stakeholders, because there is no bailout. It's on us. For example, Jamaica was on a very positive trajectory, and then COVID hit. Jamaica recovered from COVID and regained momentum. Net international reserves now exceed $6 billion US. Debt to GDP was projected to go sub 70% in 2026. And Jamaica's international credit ratings continuously improve. And then Beryl, and then Melissa hit. Tomorrow, the Honorable Minister Fayval Williams will kick off our conference, and I'm sure we will gain further insight into Jamaica's fiscal trajectory and how Hurricane Melissa may or may not affect same. You know, When St. Martin was devastated by Hurricane Irma, the place was leveled, the entire island. The Dutch military flew in, restored law and order almost overnight, and built the largest white air-conditioned tent to operate their Princess Juliana Airport. This is what I mean when I say that there's no motherland for us. And post-Melissa, Jamaica will once again get up and get going and regain our positive trajectory. Our domestic capital markets will play a major role in post-Melissa economic recovery, and we look forward to hearing more on this over the next 2 days. Prime Minister Holness, Minister Williams, the broker-dealers and our capital markets are and will continue to play a significant role in the rebuild of Jamaica, and we stand ready to work with the government of Jamaica to accelerate the rebuild. The capital markets have the ability to be very creative and think outside the box. We can bridge the gap in capital recovery inflows that take some time to be received. Again, we look forward to hearing more on this during the conference. I'm just going to switch gears now to the second factor, regulatory change. Most of you would know the adoption of Basel III and the Twin Peaks regulatory regime brings significant change to our industry. Risk weightings foster discipline and scientific approach to capital requirements and asset pricing, which aligns well with the mandate of safeguarding the region's investability. The introduction of liquidity ratio requirements significantly influences the construct of the new age broker-dealer and again points towards a more disciplined approach to capital allocation. In keeping with the theme of safeguarding the region's investability, let us also consider that capital adequacy, liquidity requirements, qualifiable asset supply, and the increasing intensity of regulatory reach and the associated cost all make for a safer environment. But at the same time, it does significantly increase the cost of operations, which in turn creates challenges in generating adequate returns for capital deployed in our region. Compliance teams and internal governance structures are larger than ever and growing. This costs both money and bandwidth. So in essence, the hurdle rate for adequate profitability to justify capital deployment has a higher barrier. The special resolution regime would also be a big consideration for anyone considering deployment of capital into our region, into Jamaica. Foreign direct investment knows all of the above, and they have to justify to their capital owners why our region ought to be considered. If one can deploy capital anywhere in the world, what would make our region attractive where capital allocators demand a compensating return on equity for the risk and nuances of investing in our territory? The question before us is simple. How do we make our region investable? I hope these reflections encourage thoughtful discussion over the next 2 days. To my industry colleagues, let us all be responsible in pursuing our returns with a broader domestic and regional agenda, knowing that there is no bailout as there is no motherland. Our challenge is to strike the right balance, safeguarding stability while creating sustainable returns, and to build a region that is self-sufficient, resilient, and globally investable. Thank you for your time and attention this evening, and for those visiting, welcome to Jamaica.
Thank you so very much, Angus Young. And yeah, so whatever I was going to say about Venezuela, you covered that. Yeah, okay. Now, you know, my friends, as global capital searches for value, our region remains firmly on the international radar. Our next speaker brings a global lens to regional opportunity. Speaking on global capital seeking regional value, please welcome the Managing Director, Head of Emerging Markets, Fixed Income and Wealth Management for Jefferies, someone who is really a true friend of this country. I speak of our good friend, Mr. Gregory Fisher.
Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. On behalf of all my colleagues at Jefferies, once again, a warm welcome to this year's Jamaica Stock Exchange. All protocols fully acknowledged, but I wanted to acknowledge the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Favorable Williams, Minister of Finance, and of course, the Honorable Alban Hill. Welcome. So here we are in 2026. As we embark in this new year, it brings me tremendous joy to be part of this ongoing conference that hopefully will once again shine some needed rays of excitement during these challenging global times. At Jefferies, we continue to remain a partner of this terrific conference, as well as being totally committed to the Caribbean region. As this is the 11th year that my firm has been lead international sponsor, it truly remains a distinct honor to once again give a few opening remarks at this evening's event. More importantly, over my many decades in the region, it has become my unwavering tradition each new year to be down here in Kingston, which I have called my second home for 35 years. As Managing Director of Jefferies, my mandate continues to serve our clients with the absolute best we have to offer as a firm. At Jefferies, we continue to pool our talent, our resources, to always create the best workable solution for our clients' needs. The global markets continue to be as volatile as I've seen in my 42 years in the investment business. But at Jefferies, we take pride in finding and creating new opportunities for our clients in such unsettling environments. As I've said in the past years while standing up here, at Jefferies, we are talent-driven, we remain visionaries, we have core values, but most of all, we remain client-focused. Before I dive right in to talk about the global markets for a little bit, but I'm going to focus more on Jamaica this year, I always have to give you all the preamble that these are my opinions, and they may or may not represent those of Jefferies LLC. Got to make sure we get that done. This year, I do want to focus more on Jamaica, but I'd be remiss if I didn't have a few comments to at least share on the U.S. markets. In these early days of 2026, despite global uncertainty being such at elevated levels, such elevated levels of angst when it comes to U.S. markets, in general, it seems to me that the animal spirits were awakened earlier in this year. However, it wasn't really surprising to me that the Santa Claus rally seemed to have gotten stuck in the chimney a little bit back in December. Having said that, I do think here in 2026, we're in a more Goldilocks environment with no real bear lurking in the corner in America. The good news is U.S. GDP looks quite decent to me, with the economy firing on most cylinders, but I am a little concerned about the U.S. employment situation, as well as the frothy stock valuations. From my lens, these valuations are in dire need of a correction. But I still view the current state of the U.S. economy as a true Goldilocks moment of not being too hot or too cold. I'm going to do a little recap of 2025. After all, it's very tough to figure out where you're headed if you don't take a quick look at where you've been. Last month, we all witnessed the usual Santa Claus rally morph into the Santa Claus sell-off, with the major averages closing out 2025 with 4 daily consecutive losses. The S&P still closed up the year 15%, notching its third double-digit advance, but that gain had really been locked up in October of last year. Tack on the fact that the last 2 months of the year generated almost nothing at all. Besides that, for all of last year, 150 members of the S&P actually closed in the red. From my perspective, it was a bit concerning to me to see a bull so concentrated. And of course, it was mostly AI related. So despite my opinion that now we're in some sort of Goldilocks market, given current valuations and looking at last year's concentrated stock market performance, it remains my gut that we are in bubble territory when it comes to the US market. And after having stated the obvious, it's also my experience that the larger the bubble grows, the more dramatic of a need reset awaits at some point. It's not being a bear, it's not being a bull, that's being pragmatic. The current US stock valuations are high by any measure, and having witnessed numerous bubbles in my career, let me make this really clear when I compare this current market to those bubbles of yesteryear. The trigger that set off market resets is almost never what the consensus expects. For example, in 2000, it wasn't the internet that was the problem, it was the valuations attached to the internet. But when valuations in decades are quickly compressed in a few years' time, prudence has been my safety net in these times of extreme market froth. Jefferies' own Chris Wood said it best in his latest piece on this AI-infused market, and I quote, "In our view, the biggest risk to the US economy is an implosion of AI capex." Related to this, he believes the biggest risk to the US stock market is that investors will start to question the returns or lack thereof from this now 3-year-old capex arms race. Think about it. Since the AI explosion, the S&P has surged more than 75%, and when it comes to the recent three-peat of solid market returns, that's only happened 3 times in my career, 1987, 1999, and 2022. So this current Goldilocks environment is only likely to continue if we see some sort of needed market correction that I've witnessed in those prior years. Even though the timing and the nature of correction may be unknown, when I see a market price to perfection, I've learned that a market correction will indeed occur at some point. There is nothing over the 4 decades in doing this business that has taught me more than herd mentality almost gathers at wrong and major turning points. The US economy, yes, it's decent, it's in a good place here, but when I see the herd mentality this strong, as well as just about every analyst on the street upping their 2026 forecast, it's been my experience that if a correction does not occur, disappointment may be the end result. So I want to jump, that's just an overview. I still think the Fed is in accommodation mode. In America, we're likely to have a new Fed chair in May. It is my opinion that we're going to see 3 Fed cuts next year, not the consensus of 2. So I think locking in rates and yields are going to be coming down in America. I'd like to spend a little bit more time on a more relevant topic and chatting that about Jamaica. It's true, my birth announcement may have been printed on papyrus, but I have, you're supposed to laugh when I said that. Nobody laughed. Okay, thank you. But when I personally witnessed this great country of Jamaica morph into a stellar economy, stable country that grew out of a small emerging market island that I first visited back in the 1990s, from Prime Minister P.J. Patterson to its current Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, if you were to put on a graph the progress, it would be the only one that I've ever seen that remained in an upward trajectory in perpetuity. A few months ago, Jamaica experienced the unthinkable, something that I pray is a once-in-a-lifetime event. A direct hit from Melissa, a a Category 5 hurricane, which occurred last October 28th. It's something that I hope and pray that will never occur again. I'd like to spend this part of my remarks on the hurricane and its aftermath from my perspective, mainly focusing on the financial aspect of the devastation, but with fully acknowledging both the human and the emotional carnage that was certainly the major byproduct of Melissa's devastation. What occurred last fall is something that needs to be discussed rather than forgotten. Let me be clear and non-political. This country that I love so much was better positioned to manage the unthinkable than most would have fathomed. Via your government, Jamaica had built tremendous fiscal buffers invested in dedicated financial instruments which enabled this country to rapidly access much needed liquidity after this cataclysmic event. From Jamaica's well thought out catastrophic bond for the sum of $150 million US to prearranged credit lines with the IDB, the World Bank, and many others, from a financial perspective, the government of Jamaica had full shock absorbers in place. In fact, given the Holness administration fiscal stewardship, from a financial and fiscal standpoint, this country was indeed positioned, in my opinion, for the unthinkable. This proactive approach underscores my initial comments that this country has moved from frantic phases in responding to crises to well thought out and systemic recovery process in the event of such a disaster. I was down here during the Jamaica financial crisis in the 90s. I witnessed a country back then that was basically ill-equipped to manage any major financial shock. Back in the 90s, there were no buffers, there was no organized or thoughtful planning, there wasn't even thoughtful regulation to handle a catastrophic financial crisis that caused the debt to GDP to skyrocket above the 150% level. I was there, and trust me, it took decades and solid leadership to ensure that going forward, Jamaica had to move towards a different path, a path of discipline. Prior to Hurricane Melissa, your government not only moved the needle towards financial security, it did the unimaginable. Debt to GDP prior to hurricane was heading down towards the 60% level. The country's NIR exceeded $6.5 billion, and Jamaica's ongoing Achilles heel, crime, recorded its lowest murder rate in 35 years. From my perspective, that's just not planning, that is nonstop action. Jamaica arranging the recent $6.7 million financial package was not only needed, was not only needed, but it was also a brilliant byproduct of aggressive planning. I would have done the same thing because sourcing the $6.7 billion would have cost so much more money going to the public markets, for example. This package needs to be viewed not only historic, just like the hurricane was, but a massive positive as a direct result of creative and thoughtful planning. Jamaica, from the days of just another emerging country, has now remained, in my opinion, the stellar powerhouse in the Caribbean, even after such a catastrophic event. This is just not my opinion as well. Moody's rating agency actually, now think about this, upgraded Jamaica on December 19th, 1 month after the hurricane. Jamaica was upgraded by this credit agency after sustaining massive human and financial losses. I'd like to quote a sentence put out in the Moody's report on Jamaica. Institutional discipline will anchor financial discipline and economic resilience. And I continue to quote, Jamaica's upgrade is underpinned by strengthening of institutions and governance over the past decade. The government has consistently adhered to fiscal responsibility framework, sizable primary surplus, and a medium debt target of 60% of GDP. Prime Minister, again, I'm not going to be political, but your pre-planned shock absorbers, they worked. What's amazing is that many of you know out there that I trade Jamaica government debt. When the hurricane hit, the bonds went down, I think, 3 or 4 points for one day. The Jamaica bonds, as of today, remain trading as if they're investment grade. So that's my financial postmortem of Hurricane Melissa. However, there is the pervasive human element that must be addressed as well. Still having many Jamaicans living out in shelters and struggling on a daily basis needs to be addressed. But from my perspective, the solution does not solely reside on the shoulders of the government. It's time for the private sector to jump in and with full force. Thank you. Many of you in the audience have known me for decades, and we have built a solid relationship together. Additionally, you have strong relationships with many of my competitors, which I'm seeing many of them out there in the audience as well. Here's the challenge. It's time to take off our hunting cap for fees on transactions, work together, unified as a team, not competitors, and work together to bring outside capital to help in restoring Jamaica to normalcy. The banking fees will take care of themselves, but we must now put our sole focus on doing our part in the rebuilding process. I will bring to the table everything Jefferies has to offer in this challenge. I am pleading that everyone else in the banking business here this evening do the same thing. Let's use our smarts, our experience for the good of the people that are still suffering. And as I said before, the fees will follow, but they can't be thought of in their usual format as the initial starting point when it comes to transactions. During the Jamaica financial crisis in the 90s, it was a case of many of us holding on by a fingertip for survival. Now it's 2026, and we all have climbed up the curve of success here in Jamaica. So it's time to lift those who are now in the same situation that we were 35 years ago and lift them up. And for those of you in the audience who weren't born back then, I will tell you, you could start Googling and look how bad it was in the 90s. I know I've gone on much longer than I usually have in my past 20 years of delivering some thoughts on this opening night, but I thought given it occurred last fall, as well as this evening marking my 21st time up here at this podium at this yearly event, I kind of felt I earned a little bit of latitude. I want to acknowledge Dr. Marlene Street Forrest. We were there day one, and you're still there, and I'm still here. It's great to see you. I want to thank the Jamaica Stock Exchange for allowing Jefferies to be the lead international sponsor of this event. And while I'm looking forward to visiting with each and every one of you, please remember the challenge. It's time for the private sector to step in. Thank you.
You know, as I said before, Gregory, you're a true friend of this country, and we appreciate you. Thank you so very much. Okay, so we've been talking about capital and growth, and rightfully so. I mean, after all, this conference is about money and economics. But I think just about here, it's time to invest in something that's guaranteed to pay dividends. And I'm talking about great music. Yeah. Because the good thing about music is once it hits, you you feel no pain. And it works, okay? And it's coming just ahead of our keynote speaker. So I'd like to introduce at this time a group of 9 dynamic young musicians. They're the winners of the All Together Sing 2024 competition. They're hot and they're very entertaining. Please say hello to the Dint Hill Technical High School Choir.
Check it up, mister. Hear what I say, sonny, yeah, yeah. Put your hands in the air, sir. Oh, you won't get no hurt, mister, no, no, no. I said yeah, I say yeah, that's what I say, that's what I say. I said yeah, that's what I say, that's what I say. We gotta have something ooh, and give to Polly. I wouldn't do that, ooh, I wouldn't do that, ooh, I wouldn't do that, no way, sir. Wouldn't put the blame on me. I wouldn't do that, ooh. I wouldn't do that. I said yeah, I said yeah, that's what I say, that's what I say. I said yeah, that's what I say, that's what I say. So give it to me one time, huh? No way, Jamaica Stock Exchange. When I say give it to me one time, I want to see all the hands in the air like this, like that. So give it to me one time, huh? Give it to me 2 times, huh, huh. Give it to me no time. I said yeah, I said yeah, that's what I say, that's what I say. I said yeah, that's what I say, that's what I say. So give it to me one time, huh? Give it to me 2 times, huh, huh. Give it to me 3 times, huh, huh, huh. Gimme, 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 gimme. 54, 46 was my number. 54, 46 was my number. Everybody gets ready. It's time to rock steady. It's Baba Boom time. Yes, it is. Boom, boom. Baba Boom, boom. Boom, boom festival. Boom, boom. Baba Boom, boom. Tattoo, 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 tattoo. Now I feel those pains taking over. When you said goodnight, oh, what sweet sensation. Oh, bop, skitty bop, Scoot, 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 hey, 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 skitty bop, skitty bop, skitty bop, skitty bop, Now bow your heads, move your arms, shake your hips. Now do a dip. Now everybody can do the ska. It's a new dance that goes like this. Now everybody can do the ska. It's a new dance you can't resist. Ska.
Whoa, whoa, yeah. When you turn and you walk through that door, it hurts me so. I say it hurts me so, baby. When you look at me and you say goodbye, you make me cry. I say you make me cry, crying. So listen to me while I say to you, breaking up is hard to do. Everybody knows, they know, yeah. You think I love you for just one thing? To you, my love, it may be the way it seems, but I love the way you carry yourself. I even love the way your hair. Ain't that loving you? Oh, ain't that loving you for more reasons than one? Somehow my love has been misled by the things the other man said, but I love the way you carry yourself. I even love the way you wear your hair. Ain't that loving you? Oh, ain't that loving you for more reasons than one? They say that once a tear is falling, the willow cries eternally. Cry not for me, my willow tree. Don't shed your tears eternally, for I have found the love I search for. I need your tears no sunshine most of the time. And the feeling is laid back. Palm trees growing so low, don't you know? I keep on making my way back. But I'm a Jamaican boy, born and raised. Nowadays I'm lost between two shores. LA's fine, but it ain't home. New York's home, but it ain't mine no more. Ooh, ooh, I am myself to no one there, and no one heard at all, not even the chair. I am my pride. I am said I. Yes, I am lost and I can't even say why. Leaving me lonely, lonely, lonely. Leaving me lonely, lonely, lonely. Say I've got this empty feeling deep inside, and it won't let me go. And I'm a man, I don't like to swear, but I hate the sound of being alone. I am myself to no one there, and no one heard at all, not even the chair. I am my cry. I am said I. Yes, I am lost, and I can't even say why. You're leaving me lonely still.
What an amazing performance that was. The Dint Hill Technical High School Choir. And you can now understand why they were the 2024 winners of All Together Sing. Yeah, young people, we got it. The future investors, they're in the right place too. Okay, so we've come to a defining moment of this evening. Leadership, especially in challenging times, requires clarity. It requires steadiness, and it requires the ability to guide a nation through difficulty toward recovery and resilience. Our keynote speaker, if I can use a boxing terminology, is the undisputed heavyweight champion of all of what I just said. And speaking on Jamaica, devastation, relief, recovery, and resilience, please join me in welcoming our Prime Minister and keynote speaker, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness.
Thank you, Michael. Let me repeat my Happy New Year greeting and best wishes for healthy, happy, come give me some more, productive, oh yeah, we're not ashamed to say that, wealthy, yes, peaceful, and, of course, prosperous 2026. Let me give commendations to the Dintil Choir. Clearly, there is a vast reserve of talent in the country, and Dintil is one of those fields that we will have to tap for our talent in oil. Yes, there are some of you who thought that I would have been knocked down in the last boxing match. Yeah, I got a few punches, but I'm still standing strong. And I'm here with you today. This would be maybe about my 11th time presenting at this conference, and it is always a pleasure. It is indeed what I call a calendar event. They don't ask me, Prime Minister, are you going to attend this? They just put it in the diary because they know that I will be attending. I give God thanks that I have been able to be with you for all these years. And again, my commendations to the Jamaica Stock Exchange for hosting this very important event. Allow me to acknowledge my ministers, Minister of Finance, Favour Williams, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Aubin Hill. I'm seeing in my script Delano Seavright. Is Delano here? No. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Worship the Mayor, Mr. Stephen Whittingham, Mr. Livingstone Morrison, and Professor Angus Young, Chief Executive Officer of NCB Capital Market, Professor of International Relations. Thank you for your treatise on Caribbean geopolitics and global hegemony. Our long-standing friend, Mr. Gregory Fisher, Managing Director of Jefferies. As usual, we pay close attention to your perspectives. And the doyen, the darling, the Honorable Marlene Street Forest. How are you, Marlene? You're looking resplendent as usual. Executive representatives of public agencies, private sector entities, and financial and academic institutions, and my favorite catch-all greeting, all nice and decent people gathered here today. It's good to be with you. It's a privilege to join you at this important regional capital markets conference convened under the theme, Capital Markets Fueling Economic Resurgence and Resilience. Just under 3 months ago, on the fateful day, October 28, 2025, we faced one of the most severe natural disasters in our modern history. And just to clarify, this was the third most powerful hurricane produced in the world, whether Pacific cyclone or hurricane in the Atlantic. And it was the second most powerful hurricane in the Atlantic. So without question, we were hit by one of nature's most powerful blows. And yes, we had a plan until we got hit. And that's the nature of life. The test is not that you were hit. You're going to get hit in life. The test is whether or not you can get back up. And yet, Here I stand before you today, and yes, Jamaica is standing up before you today as well. Jamaica has not only weathered the storm, Jamaica is recovering rapidly, and Jamaica is moving forward with purpose. The true measure of resilience is not simply how a country responds in the immediate aftermath of a shock, but how quickly emergency response transitions to normal economic life. That's the true measure. By that measure, Jamaica's recovery is well advanced. Today, approximately 93% of households have electricity restored. Water systems are also over 93% restored. But recovery is not only about the utilities. It is about whether the economy is functioning. Today, businesses are reopening. Workers are returning to their jobs. Transport routes are operating normally. Schools, clinics, and public services are functioning. And commercial activities and the informal economy have resumed right across Jamaica. This is not to say that there are not persons who have been dislocated, businesses that have not reopened. But generally, having been hit by a Category 5 hurricane, when you compare Jamaica's relief and recovery to its peers that have been similarly hit, some who would have motherlands, as Professor Young pointed out. We don't. So when you compare us to our peers, we have exceeded them. And when you compare us to other developed countries, you know, if you look at Katrina and other events like that, you will see that Jamaica's recovery for similar or worse type disasters, that we have done fairly well. Just last week, Jamaicans saw this recovery reflected vividly on the ground in communities such as Border, in, is it St. Elizabeth or Westmoreland? It's Border, between both. Vendors and small operators, many of whom were directly affected by the storm, were back in business. Stores reopened, trade resumed, the daily rhythm of economic life returning. These are concrete indicators that confidence has returned and that confidence matters not only to households and small businesses, but to investors, lenders, and capital markets assessing the strength and trajectory of the Jamaican economy. Today, Jamaica is not in crisis mode. We're not in emergency stabilization. We are moving forward with purpose. Another powerful indicator of Jamaica's market confidence was the recent action of the rating agencies. In the closing weeks of 2025, all three major international credit rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch, reaffirmed Jamaica's sovereign credit ratings with a stable outlook. Standard & Poor's maintained Jamaica's BB just 2 notches below investment grade. Can you imagine when we reach investment grade? Moody's actually upgraded Jamaica to Ba3, and Fitch affirmed Jamaica's BB-. In the aftermath of a Category 5 hurricane, this is extraordinary. Extraordinary. Just imagine how the same rating agencies would have viewed Jamaica just over a decade ago. A shock of this magnitude would have inevitably resulted in ratings downgrades and pushed Jamaica into macroeconomic and debt crises. The rating agency cited Jamaica's strong fiscal buffers, the credibility of our institutional framework for fiscal prudence and debt sustainability, the effectiveness of our multi-layered disaster risk financing strategy, and the speed and coordination of the government's response. All of this tells the world that Jamaica's economic resilience is well reinforced by design, not by accident, by design. Deliberate, intentional, instrumental. Long before October 28, 2025, we had already put in place a multi-layered disaster risk financing framework, the product of years of strategic planning, disciplined fiscal management, and proactive investment in national resilience. The framework was, as I said, deliberately designed to ensure that when a disaster strikes, the government would be able to respond immediately, credibly, and without destabilizing the economy. That preparation has proved decisive in our post-Melissa response. At the domestic level, we had approximately $5.3 billion available in the contingencies fund. That's from our budget. And $1 billion in the National Natural Disaster Reserve Fund, which provided some immediate fiscal flexibility. That's from savings. And we had a little debate in Parliament about what should be the ceiling for the fund. And what it demonstrated is that I don't believe there is full understanding of the disaster risk management strategy, of the layered financial strategy that we have put in place, or even a proper understanding of the fiscal strategies that the Ministry of Finance has employed to ensure that we can respond effectively. I think that when you compare what has happened in the past to what has happened now, the management of Jamaica's fiscal affairs today is far superior than anything that we have experienced before in the past. Now, at the regional and international insurance level, Jamaica received $91 million from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, one of the largest payouts ever made in the region. And our US $150 million catastrophe bond was triggered automatically based on parametric thresholds, delivering liquidity without delay, negotiation, or conditionality. Let me say, you should feel free to clap if you don't look at your neighbor and see what is he doing. Is he clapping or no? If you're moved, you're moved. Don't worry if you're the single clap in the room. Don't worry. What moves you, show it. At the contingent credit level, we had US $285 million available through the Inter-American Development Bank's contingent credit facility, which was swiftly upsized to $300 million. We had US $42 million scalable to US $84 million available under the World Bank's catastrophe deferred drawdown option. So taken together, this meant that Jamaica had approximately US $662 million in liquidity available almost immediately following the hurricane. You have to ask yourself, why did we have this? It was not an automatic thing that happens each time or for every country that has a hurricane. All of these were pre-arranged. It was planned, put in place to finally, once and for all, acknowledge that Jamaica is going to be hit by a shock an exogenous event over which we have no control. But that is not an excuse. That has been the cycle in which we have been caught up for the last 50 years. Each time that we are hit by a shock, we are not prepared, and then we blame the shock. The difference with this government is that we don't blame shocks. We don't blame external events. We don't blame external powers. We take responsibility and we put measures in place. That's the difference. We don't look at the rain and ask it, why is it raining? We don't look at the hurricane and say, why did you come? We don't argue with nature. We prepare for nature, for politics, for economics, and we work for peace. So this is planning, preparedness, and responsible governance in action. It ensured that Jamaica did not wait helplessly for assistance. We were ready to act to protect our people while maintaining market confidence and economic stability. But Melissa was without precedent in terms of its scale. The extent of infrastructure damage, the displacement of thousands of families, the destruction of livelihoods, and the long-term economic implications meant that while early liquidity was essential, additional financing was required, not merely to repair damage, but to rebuild Jamaica stronger and more resilient than before. In the weeks following the hurricane, we engaged intensively with the leadership of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the IDB, and CAF, that is the Development Bank of Latin America, and the Caribbean Development Bank. The G20 provided the platform on which this intense engagement was executed. And I pause here to reflect that this is the second time that Jamaica has been invited to participate in the G20. Jamaica is not a G20 country. No, we're not. But we are recognized for how we have managed our affairs. This is a new era of diplomacy. It's a new era of geopolitics. The old era, which some people are still stuck in, and how they see the world and how they expect the world to respond to them, could not survive in today's world. And we have to establish that clearly. I hear the commentators, many of them seem to be stuck in an era where they believe the world owes them something. You have to be able to find your way in the world. You have to be able to find the opportunities, mitigate the threats. There is a generation that still thinks about political independence. What I'm struggling for is Jamaica's economic independence. You can talk all you want about your political independence. At some point, you have to be able to back it up with your economic independence. So, Professor Young, thank you for that, again, well-written treatise. Every country has to play for their interest. And sometimes we don't do a good job in explaining to our population what are the interests. But one thing you will be assured of is that this government is going to ensure that Jamaica's best interests are always forefront in our minds, and we are always advocating and pursuing it. Which means that we must always have access, and we must always be at the table. It's not always going to go our way, but we must always have access. We must always be able, at some way, some level, to have the proper exercise of statecraft, to exert influence through various forms of power. Even small countries have power. Some people just don't understand the new statecraft as to how you exert that and how you use that. For us and for this administration, pursuing economic independence ultimately will result in your political independence. For many years, Jamaica has been diverted into all kinds of ideological fantasies that resulted in us wandering in the wilderness of economic despair. We will not do that again. So when we are faced with these challenges, we are not afraid to go on the international stage to ensure we have access so that we can speak with credibility, because we have demonstrated that we are a responsible country with strong institutions. And so the result of that is that we were able to secure $6.7 billion in financing. Now, I can hear the sitting say, but those are loans. Some of it would be grants. But the real secret is the access to low-cost financing with very little conditionalities. In fact, conditionalities which align to the things that we have to do and should be doing and are doing anyway. $20, $30, $40 years ago, they would have to go to, my friend, in other words, if this had happened, 30 years ago, the cost of the financing would put us in a debt trap. And then we would turn around and say, the international community created a debt trap for us. I know it sounds harsh, and I'm expecting the critics to come out of the woodwork tomorrow. I'm ready for them. But that's the reality. And why am I saying this? It is important that all of you here who are investors understand that government will not put your investments at risk. You can be assured that we are not going to wander off into political fantasies that put your investments at risk. Because no matter what, there is an inextricable link between politics and economics. You have to play the politics right to make sure that your economy works well. And, not all countries in the region have this very good relationship between the government and the private sector. It is one of the assets that Jamaica has, and we should make sure it is preserved. And I say this to our Jamaican private sector, which is not just NCB. Our private sector is also the lady frying that fish in Border. In fact, she is more of the private sector. And I am not going to do anything that will prevent her from having her fish sold to local and foreign tourists, so she can send her children to school. Because that is how you preserve and build the dignity of the people. I want that message, which is unscripted, to percolate and filter throughout the audience. So, we were able to secure $3.6 billion US dollars in sovereign debt financing and $2.4 billion in private capital mobilization. I want to hang a little bit there. And of course, we had already accounted for the $662 million US dollars. But I want to focus on the $2.4 billion because, yes, the available financing, which will be directly to the government, will have an impact on our debt to GDP ratio, without question. But we are not going to be able to mount an effective reconstruction without the partnership of the private sector. And there is $2.4 billion in this package for the private sector, for new businesses and new enterprise, new infrastructure, rebuild and reconstruct hotels and farms and businesses. So I use this opportunity today, speaking to the private sector of Jamaica and our friends internationally, that the hurricane, possibly sending us a message, came ashore at New Hope. We must not waste the crisis that the hurricane would have created, which is, if you flip it around, it is an opportunity to reconstruct and rebuild all of those parishes who were, before the hurricane, in need of major investment. Now we have the opportunity to actually do the investment with the financing. So all the business people, from the corridor stretching from Manchester, going through St. Elizabeth, into Westmoreland, into Hanover, into St. James, into Trelawney, into St. Anne, should be thinking, how can I be a part of this? The projects that I had developed and I just couldn't get it financed, now is the time to say, let's go with this project. The financial intermediaries, now is the time to be preparing. Because when we do the reconstruction, we're not just going to rebuild what was there. We're going to build things that weren't there before. We're going to be building forward. Not just better, but we're going to be building forward. So I see the hurricane as an opportunity for investment-induced growth. That's what it is. And I encourage the private sector to see it in this way. So we're currently focused on recovery from a climate-related shock. It is important to realize that we are in the midst of a highly unsettled geopolitical and geo-economic environment. We are operating in a world marked by rising geopolitical tensions and economic fragmentation, where trade relationships are being reshaped, where strategic disputes have intensified, and even long-standing alliances are under strain. In such an environment, climate events, geopolitical tension, supply chain disruptions, financial volatility, and security risks do not occur sequentially. They overlap and they reinforce each other. So for a small, open economy like Jamaica, this global environment reinforces a simple but critical truth. We have to remain prepared for our economy to weather external shocks of all sorts, and we must be prepared not only for hurricanes, but for a broad range of external shocks, climatic, economic, geopolitical, and financial, that will test our system simultaneously. Resilience is therefore no longer optional. We have to be thinking in resilience. So we're going to reconstruct the areas that were damaged, but we're going to do it with a forward thinking. We're going to seek to include new businesses and new infrastructure, including new towns, new roads, new schools, new hospitals. But there's one important thing that we have to also do. We have to build them with the next hurricane, the next shock in mind. We have to build them with resilience. So we're not going to rebuild the hospital that is right on the sea. And if you think about it, Falmouth Hospital is right on the sea. The Black River Hospital, right on the sea. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to move them inland. You know, Black River is at or below sea level. We're going to have to figure out how we, over time, rebuild the town, but in a safer way. So, resilience is a critical part. So we have decided that we're going to establish the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, an institution mandated to coordinate post-disaster reconstruction and long-term resilience building. This will be a center of excellence, a single point of coordination, a platform for public-private partnerships, which we will be reaching out to the private sector in a deliberate way to see how we can partner to get the projects that you had in mind for the area, new projects, financed and executed. And it will be a bridge between climate resilience and economic development. In a few days, I'll be making further announcements about where we are with NARA. We have just put out an advertisement for an executive officer to lead the entity. We have established it temporarily as a department of the Cabinet Office. Tomorrow, actually, the Cabinet meets to make the final decisions as to the organizational structure, the governance, the short list of initial projects that it will undertake, and the legislative agenda. You will recall that last year when I addressed this function, this event, I put out there that we are going to have speed. The government's attempt to deal with Jamaica's growing and very dense bureaucracy. Well, we're going to use the hurricane as the test case for how we can introduce speed in the Jamaican bureaucracy to get these projects that must be done quickly. And I also said that we're going to pivot to growth. Well, there's no better pivot than to do the investments that will induce growth because of the hurricane. So the things that I had announced, not knowing that there would be a hurricane, we must now use them to the advantage to recover the loss in economic value and output that resulted from the hurricane. But more than that, to put Jamaica on a better position to grow even faster. Just think of it. When has Jamaica ever had at its disposal $6.7 billion to spend on building its economy? Jamaica's economy, in terms of current value, maybe about $21 billion. Just think if we do it right, if we get it right, and add in a synergistic way $6.7 billion of value to the economy. That's a sea change in Jamaica. And that's what NARA will be established to do, to make sure that we secure the benefit from this infusion of new financing into the country. And so business people, I know, are already thinking, how can we be a part of this? And the government is open. We want the partnership with the private sector to do this because government can't do it alone. We don't have the capacity, the absorptive capacity to do this by ourselves. So it must be done with the private sector. So again, I make the appeal to our private sector leaders, get ready. But there is another element of our recovery and our performance that I want to grab your attention with. And that's a discussion on public safety. No discussion on economic confidence and investment would be complete without addressing public safety. Here too, in Jamaica, we have made extraordinary progress on this. In 2025, Jamaica recorded 42% reduction in homicides compared to 2024. Yes. Let me be clear, this is not a fluke. In 2023, we had an 8% reduction. In 2024, we had a 19% reduction. And in 2025, we have had a 42% reduction. As of today, we are 50% below last year this time. We track it every day. Let me tell you, I wake up first, I have a routine. I informationalize, I check the headlines, read whatever important articles through my emails. But one of the things I do, I call up some of the ministers and or critical sector leaders. And one of the important calls I make almost every morning is what is the murder rate? It's one of the calls the Commissioner of Police, I'm sure, he knows when he gets that call why I'm calling him. Because, you can only manage what you measure. And that's what we have been. We have been very clinical, very strategic, very deliberate, and very committed to reducing the ultimate index of violence in the society, which is the murder rate. It was one of those intractable problems that many of you here would have thought Jamaica would never be in that position. And there are still those who are trying to find all kinds of reasons to say it is not real. Well, aside from El Salvador, Jamaica is the only country in the region to have achieved this. And as I've said, we're going into our fourth year. The plan, because all of this is by plan, it's not by accident. We established Plan Secure Jamaica, and we backed it with a $90 billion budget, investing in our security forces, and we are now reaping the results. The next phase of the plan is to move the society to peace. So, yes. So there are two elements to the public safety issue in Jamaica. The first element is organized criminal enterprises that use violence for economic and social control. we euphemistically call them gangs. Now, they're not some disadvantaged youngsters who are on the fringe of the society. No. These are people organized for illicit activity, whether it is human trafficking, drugs, other contraband, cyber, all kinds of things. And they take life in the pursuit of their economic activities, or they seek to control communities to cover their illicit activities. If unchecked, they become a challenge to the state. In other words, they become another power that could challenge the state. I want to put it in context. That is what was happening in Jamaica. Criminal enterprises were challenging the state. Whenever that happens, if it is not checked, the end result of it is Haiti. Now, if you look across several countries in South America, most recently Guatemala, before it was El Salvador, Honduras partially had that problem, Peru, Ecuador, all of those countries have that problem. Right in our region, Trinidad, the Turks and Caicos, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, all of them had that problem. The narrative is very limited and does not acknowledge that we face that threat. But I am not fooled. Neither am I deterred by the shallow narratives that are in the public space about what we have to do to reduce this threat, this very real national security threat. We have reduced it, and we continue to erode it. So that's one element. The second element is social violence, the use of violence in social interactions, intimate partner violence, violence in the disciplining of our children, violence in the family, which we call domestic violence, and just general violence in our social interactions. And that level of violence has become almost cultural. We cannot, as a people, resolve conflict without violence. I am not speaking to you as a social scientist. My presentation is to people who understand business and economics. Violence has an economic cost. Violence places a limit on your economic growth horizon. If we could have had 6 million tourists coming here, for every time there is a negative travel advisory, consider that people who have to think about insurance to travel, they change their minds. There are certain markets that you won't get into because when your stats are reviewed. So there are those who would say, well, violence is a social issue. It's because of economic deprivation and, persons who are marginalized, without thinking that those persons actually create the marginalization by placing a limit on our economic success, by the decisions they make to become criminals. I know what I said is harsh for many. But just think, not every youth in the ghetto takes up a gun and becomes a criminal. Why should the good ones who don't do it, who are the majority, 95% of them, suffer for the 5% that do? Until our society stands up in unison and say no more of this, we will be just We will provide you with the opportunities. We will seek to ensure that you are properly integrated into society, but there will be firm consequences for you if you decide to pursue a life of crime and deprive everybody else of their safety. Until we get rid of this ambivalence in the society, we'll always be at risk. Businesses will have to pay more for security. Homeowners will have to pay more for security. Reduces your productivity, reduces your enjoyment and pursuit of happiness. It is a cost to our country. Most of all, it destroys the brand that keeps people coming here. The brand of Jamaica, the peaceful country. Jamaica, no problem, man. Jamaica, the country of equity and fairness and social justice. Those people who do that must face consequences. Let this be the decade where we remove that from our society in the same way that we have achieved fiscal discipline. Let us use this decade to eliminate violence from our society. Let this be the decade when Jamaica truly attains peace. And this will reinforce our economy. And the very people who claim that they are involved in crime because they have been marginalized, they too will have the opportunity to share in this economy, to become stockholders and shareholders and start their small business. We want you to become business owners. We want you to become entrepreneurs, because much of the effort that they put into crime, if they were to put it into business, they would be successes. Another critical element, since I have stirred you up with that presentation, and I think I get another 5 minutes out of you, is the cost of energy. Growth also requires addressing structural cost drivers. Energy costs remain one of the most important constraints on productivity in small island economies. And this is a major area of focus for the government as part of the pivot to growth. That is why the government issued the notice to JPSCO in July 2025 regarding the license, which expires in 2027. We have appointed consultants and commenced the process of negotiation with JPS to see whether there can be mutual agreement on new license terms that will result in a path to lower electricity cost, expansion in renewable energy capacity, improved customer service and accountability, as well as improved grid resilience to natural disasters. So, not only are we going to renegotiate the license, we did not allow the hurricane to change us from that path. Maybe some other government would have caved in and say, well, you know, the disaster, let's not try to renegotiate. No, we are firm on the path that we must renegotiate the license, a better license that will bring down the cost in the long term. And at the same time, we facilitated the JPS with a loan that will get the grid back up so that the economy can be restarted. And that is actually now what is happening very quickly after the hurricane. Now, the last issue I want to deal with is the financial sector and capital market reforms. Professor Angus Young also addressed that in the last part of his presentation. Jamaica's current financial regulatory framework was shaped largely in the post-FinTech era, at a time when our macroeconomic reality was fundamentally different from the one we inhabit today. It was constructed in a period marked by vulnerability and low confidence, with an overriding necessity to restore confidence and stability to the financial system. Let me say unequivocally, that framework has served Jamaica well. It has delivered financial stability, strong and credible prudential oversight, sound, well-capitalized institutions, and systemic resilience across the financial sector as a whole. But regulatory frameworks are not meant to be frozen in time. Jamaica's regulatory architecture was forged in an era where the central imperative was risk containment, to stabilize an economy emerging from crisis and to protect the system from failure. It has been a phenomenal success in achieving that mission. We now have a responsibility to build on that success. The architecture that once focused primarily on risk containment must now be recalibrated to enable opportunity. The same framework that shielded Jamaica in a period of vulnerability must now be adapted to support expansion, innovation, and scale in a period of strength. This is not a repudiation of what has worked. It is the next logical step in Jamaica's economic evolution. Today, Jamaica operates in a vastly different macroeconomic environment with significantly lower public debt, robust external reserves, credible and durable fiscal anchors, and deeper, more sophisticated domestic capital markets. The risks we face today are different. The instruments available to us are more complex, and the opportunities before us are far greater. It is therefore time, deliberately, responsibly, and transparently, to revisit and modernize elements of the financial regulatory framework, not to weaken stability, but to ensure that regulation is aligned with evolving risk profiles, increased market sophistication, innovation in financial products and instruments, and the imperative for capital markets to play a more dynamic role in fueling economic resurgence and resilience. This is not deregulation. Let me say that again. This is not deregulation, but smarter regulation for a stronger economy. Stability remains non-negotiable. Financial soundness will be protected, but stability must now serve as a platform for growth, not a ceiling for growth. The regulatory regime must evolve. It must continue to preserve confidence, but also focus on unlocking capital, deepening markets, and positioning Jamaica's financial system to support the next phase of national development. I will not be making specific policy announcements today. However, I wanted to give you an indication of the policy direction. Those who know what I have said in these coded words understand exactly where we will be moving, which is why I'm saying the private sector is a critical partner. Get ready. We must create opportunities. So as we approach the upcoming budget presentation, the government will be bringing forward initiatives that are consistent with this approach, initiatives that strengthen our capital markets, modernize elements of the regulatory framework, and ensure that Jamaica's financial system is fully equipped to support economic resurgence and long-term resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamaica's story after Hurricane Melissa is not a story of fragility. Finally, we're not a fragile economy. Well, we're still areas of fragility, but having been hit, consider it. We've been hit by a global pandemic, once in a 100-year event. Several tropical storms Then we were hit by Beryl. Immediately after Beryl, unseasonal rain, which destroyed our road network. People forget about that. 3 weeks of rain every day across the country. And then the following year, Hurricane Melissa. Then drought. Almost for every year, drought. And we're still standing, still viewed with optimism. Yes, I must say there are persons who are suffering. There is still human suffering. People are without roofs. But we have been able to respond, and next week, the checks will go out. $10 billion of assistance will be placed in the economy, and that's the initial support. We have started to support businesses, including our farmers. Met with some fishermen, some fisher folk rather, on Friday. Yes, because there were some ladies who were pointing to their boats that were destroyed. And, you know, the funny thing is, there's one gentleman who was saying, look at the boats, all of the boats were destroyed, and the government must act quickly. And so we asked him his name. And the minister took his name, went on his phone, and sent a message to his technical officer and said, what's the situation with this gentleman? And then the person sent back a message to the minister to say, yes, he got his grant of almost $1 million to repair his boat. which is, you know, this is just a part of the Jamaican experience. So he was there advocating that government needs to act, but he's not saying a word that he got his grant already. I say this to say that sometimes we are hard on ourselves. Yeah, we must never forget the poor and those who are dispossessed. But we must not act as if that is the totality of the Jamaican story. We must always remember we are a blessed people. And as bad as it was, it could have been worse. We were spared the worst. And we must not frown on that blessing. We must be grateful. Grateful to God. And we must use that reprieve as the basis on which we move forward in confidence, with vision, in unity, that we will rise from this challenge better than we were before. God bless you, and thank you.
Thank you very much, PM. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership and your address this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we now take a moment please be seated. We're going to keep him here just a little bit longer. We now take a moment to recognize 10 years of service and contribution by our Prime Minister. I'd like to invite Mr. Livingston Morrison and Mr. Stephen Whittingham to join us on stage as we make a very special presentation to our Prime Minister. Now, I will just read, I'd like to share with you the first and last paragraph of the citation, and it reads as follows. Prime Minister Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, ONPC MP, the JSSE's conference champion. For more than 2 decades, the Jamaica Stock Exchange Limited's JSE Annual Regional Conference on Investment and the Capital Markets has convened policymakers, regulators, investors, and listed companies to examine the forces shaping growth and resilience across Caribbean financial markets. As the financial landscape grows increasingly dynamic, the conference remains a critical forum for strategic insight and collaboration among regional and international stakeholders. On the occasion of its 21st conference and in recognition of its 10th year as our keynote speaker, the JSSE salutes Prime Minister Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, ONPC MP, as the JSE Annual Regional Conference on Investment and the Capital Markets Conference Champion, January 20, 2026. Did I say something earlier about undisputed champion? I didn't even notice. Okay. PM, thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay. And, you know, once again, this is a true demonstration of commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for our Prime Minister. Okay, so just about here, we'd now like to say thank you to a number of persons who have made this evening really happen. And to do that, to formally close this evening's program, please welcome the Group Business Development Manager, a guy who I see only once a year. I'm speaking of Andre Gooden, and he will now make the vote of thanks. Andre? Here's Andre.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Koch. Round of applause for... I think Michael has done this event as long as, or longer than the Prime Minister has, so congrats to you as well. Prime Minister, you just had an extensive thank you made to you by our chairman, so I'll be brief and just say we thank you for your words of encouragement, reminding us of the importance of planning and preparedness, and setting the stage again for an excellent conference. I think I have been the person who has been moving this vote of thanks the most to you in your 10 or 11 years that you've been here. So thank you very much, sir, for being here and for your commitment to this event and to the Jamaica Stock Exchange particularly. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the entertainment tonight by the Dint Hill Technical High School Choir was certainly refreshing, and I want you to put your hands together for them as well. To Greg Fisher, the constant ambassador for regional capital markets, generally, Jamaica in particular. Thank you again, sir, for your sterling leadership and support for this event year after year after year. Your perspective on the hurricane and the aftermath and the challenge to the private sector, I find very refreshing. And we look forward to 2 more days of great fellowship together. Thank you, Greg Fisher, for your sponsorship and your participation today. What can I say about Professor Angus Young? So good was your presentation today that you have been bestowed yet another honor by none other than the Prime Minister. We thank you for your global view on geopolitics and its relevance to us and the region and identification of those capital opportunities. You also mentioned the regulatory changes and its effects on our investability. Very important, and we look forward to hearing you build out those topics in your address in the coming days. To our chairman, Stephen, thank you again for reminding us about the importance of private-public partnerships and that we have the power to realize our collective visions. Strong, strong message. To our CEO, thank you again also for the warm welcome. for your message that about our strength and our resilience and the call to action, very important for us to work together to rebuild. I thank Reverend Dexter Johnson for also moving a very moving prayer. Thank you to our sponsors, all the participants, all the attendees. We have 2 good days ahead of us. Thank you all for being here and for constantly supporting the Jamaica Stock Exchange. See you tomorrow, 8 a.m. We'll be ready to hear the minister. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.
And just so you know, the celebration continues in the reception area, where the bar is open, and of course, feel free to continue your networking and whatever it is you do on occasions like this. We would also like to say a very special thank you to our sponsors tonight as well. Jefferies, our top title sponsor, Jefferies NCB Capital Markets Limited, TVJ, Jamaica Observer, Pegasus, Sagicor Investments Limited, Liberty, JMMB Investments Limited, Finastra, Barita Investments Limited, CIBC, Proven, Scotiabank, Cygnus, Oppenheimer, INC, West Indies